She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties. That man is just hot Latin loveliness.
Ship up or ship out, man. Like,
exploring your sexuality, healthy, but does it have to be with the Prince of England?
An ocean is a chastity belt.
And I cannot think of a better way to define current American politics other than that.
Yeah. HRH Prince Dickhead Poop Emoji. It's like a PR blitz.
It's very naughty.
Good job. That's the best synopsis we've had so far.
Hey!
Hey, lady.
How are you?
Good. I'm here. You know, it's been a long week.
Hang on. I have to silence my phone.
Oh.
Okay. Why does my phone not recognize me when I'm wearing makeup?
Rude.
That is some disrespectful technology.
So rude. It's the eyebrows. I love you, but you have no eyebrows.
I don't have eyebrows. I definitely pencil them on, but it's not because I like wax them or like tweeze them. It's not like a 90s.
But your natural hair color is really faint, so
it is. It is. I have a quote unquote natural redhead that my stylist makes sure to maintain, but really I am a blonde.
Hey, that's Tater. Livia's eyebrows. That's so funny. When she started doing theater, and we had to get her makeup, I took her over to Sephora, and because we had to get theater makeup, and she called, and I took her in there, and she's like, "Mommy, I have eyebrows." Yes, Livia, you have eyebrows.
I never really knew it was like a thing until like my students were like, "Why don't you have any eyebrows?" I was like, "What do you mean? Why don't I have any eyebrows?" I'm like,
my brows of eyes are fine, thank you.
They're like, why do you keep waxing them off? And I'm like, I don't.
That's the thing. People wax and shave their eyebrows off.
People do. Not me.
No, I'm not. So,
but I definitely look alien like without them. Oh, hey. So episode 5.
Woo!
We're here on episode 5. We are going to talk about today Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, I think is how you say her last name.
McQuiston. I think that's right.
I think
that's right.
Maybe McQuiston.
Okay.
Something like that.
So last year, you actually pretty much forced me to read this book. You told me several times. Every time we talked, you're like, you have to read this. You're going to love it.
So this...
And she was right.
Yeah.
I loved this book.
Oh, I'm so glad you loved it. I'm so glad.
I love this book.
So this, I read it again for the pod. So this is actually the third time that I've read it in a year. I've already read it once again in 2021. So
it is a comfort read. I will say that.
It is. So the first time I read it, I did the audiobook, and like I love audiobooks. We've talked about how we both like audiobooks on this pod before, and like it is reading. It is legitimately reading. But
there's a lot of us that reading's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know. And for me, it's like a comfort thing. I read when I'm in the shower and when I'm in the car. Like that's why I do the audiobooks. I used to have a very long drive to work, and so that's what I was doing. But this audiobook was one of those. I went through this phase where I read like 4 audiobooks back to back that were like very naughty. And I was like, whoo, this is hot. And this was one of those. And so then this year I bought the physical book and read it again, and now have read it again to prepare for this discussion.
Well, I bought the physical book because after I listened to the audio the first time, I'm like, as a writer, I actually wrote a note about this because I was the formatting, the choosing of using emails and texts. And as a writer, I find that interesting. I always love when authors do different formatting styles to break up the book. It always fascinates me. And we'll get into this when we cover Fangirl too.
We will definitely talk more about the writing style a little bit later, but I thought I'd give a quick like overview summary of what this book is about. So Red, White, and Royal Blue is from first person point of view. The main character, his name is Alex Claremont Diaz, and he is the first son of the United States. His mom is our first female president and was elected in 2016. And his arch nemesis is Henry, the Prince
I'm
of
going to air quote
England.
that.
Yes. Henry, the Prince of England, whose mother is a princess and whose father was
James Bond.
James Bond.
Bleep that, please, Tom. Sorry.
Which is just amazing. And they are arch nemesis, and
in Alex's mind, I don't think Henry sees it that way.
Absolutely not, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Alex and his sister attend the royal wedding of Henry's older brother, who will be king. And
Philip.
Yes, his name is Philip, and he's very posh and
snooty.
He's kind of a dick.
Snooty face. Do you like it?
Yes. And Alex gets into an argument with Henry while he is drunk. Well, Alex is drunk, not Henry, although Henry might be drunk. I don't know. And they destroy a really expensive wedding cake.
$5,000 wedding cake.
No, it's more than that. It was like,
is it?
It was like 7 something.
Oh, God bless. Hard pass.
It was a lot. And because $75,000, the cake was $75,000, and they destroy it.
Why?
And because this becomes headlines.
If you've paid that much for a wedding cake, leave a comment, and I want to know why.
Don't ever do that. That's disgusting. So Alex has to have a fake friendship now with Henry to save face for the American politicians and for the royal family, and consequently develops a friendship with Henry, which ends up leading to banging. These boys turns into
a romantic relationship. Yes.
Okay. They do not have a romantic relationship initially. They are fuck buddies.
That is true.
Then they become romantically entwined.
They are indeed the fuck buddies.
Yes. Now, interesting thing about this book. Well, we know it's LGBTQ relationship because we have Alex and Henry are both men. Henry is a gay man in the royal family, which what would happen if we had a gay royal? And yes, and Alex doesn't. He identifies as straight when we start this book,
right?
And so there's definitely not just this romance that's LGBTQ, but there is also a coming of age and a coming out, and all that encompasses that, and it's all involved in a political scandal. And
it's so many amazing things.
Yeah. So,
that's a good synopsis. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you very much.
Good job. That's the best synopsis we've had so far.
It's almost like I have a degree in studying literature.
Hey, I can fill in the blanks. I just can't. We've said this. I can't say the words. We know
it's
that.
Fun. It's all good. Words are hard. All right.
Words are hard. Molly's mantra.
Yes. So let's talk about this. All right. So I kind of we have a list of questions that I have for you, Molly.
Yeah.
And we have some notes. Listeners, we are getting more prepared.
Double-sided.
We are taking notes. We are listening to your comments.
Well, also, when we dive into books we both really love, there is a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
like
there is.
So without doing too much spoilery, April has been doing Discovery and reading Discovery, which is I've been reading Fangirl, and her and I have been texting nonstop back and forth, and the other reading each other's favorite books has been amazing, but it's fun. You guys are gonna love it because
I think it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be really fun. But my point is, they're gonna be longer episodes probably because we're becoming so prepared.
We'll do our best to keep them to the hour, but
I make no promises. You guys know in this duo, I make no promises.
I'll try to keep us on task. Okay, so Molly, first question I've got for you here. So the way that this is presented in here, we have the White House trio,
which I love,
which is Alex and his sister, and the second granddaughter. So it's the granddaughter. I just moved my whole table.
Not Nora. What? Okay, Nora. Yeah,
Nora's the granddaughter. She's the granddaughter of the vice president.
Right.
And they make up the White House trio, and we kind of see this this American first family and second family as our answer to royals.
Right.
What do you think about that? Are our politicians our royals?
No, because the royal family is passed down by genealogy and blood, and we elect and select. In countries that have royal families, it is frowned upon to talk down about the crown. Here, it's okay that you have a difference of opinion with the politicians.
Well, go ahead.
Here, it's okay to vote for somebody and still dislike some of their policies. There, your queen's your queen. Buck up,
I don't know if I agree with you about that, because number one, when I lived in England, a lot of people have things to say about the royal family.
Right. I mean, it's just frowned upon. They're just...
Right. Well, they're not going to off with your heads. It's not Alice in Wonderland.
I mean, but...
and although our politicians are elected, we have a lot of generational politicians in this country.
Right.
And they do talk about that in this book. Alex intends to follow in both his parents are politicians.
Right.
And he intends to follow in those footsteps. I don't know. I tend to think, I don't really think of the first family as royal, because we've never had a first family that like we were able to do that with.
I think
maybe the Kennedys.
So the Kennedys, that's exactly where my mind was going. The Kennedys were treated that way, right?
Right.
And then tragedy struck, and everyone mourned in the whole country the way they mourned when, the Queen died and Diana died. I mean, if we're gonna say there is American royalty at any point, I would say it's the Kennedys. I don't think in this book we're getting that premise, only because I'm seeing the president. I'm seeing her like every other president. She's she's a politician, she's a mom, she's a wife, she's all these things.
Yeah.
I don't, and it's not that her character isn't strong and powerful. It's just she does not give a regal presence, and there's nothing wrong with that character. You know what I mean?
And I honestly think it was such a smart
choice.
That's
the mom's name.
Ellen. Yes. Ellen Claremont. I honestly think it was such a smart choice to make them Texans.
Yes.
Because like Molly still lives in Texas, but I lived in Texas for 4 years. And there is something very unique about Texas. If you're one of our Texas listeners, holla.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. There's something very unique about Texas. Texans believe Texas is numero uno, and it should be its own country again.
Deep and bright.
In the heart of Texas. Like it's its own thing. Like there's really, if you are in Texas and you are a Texan, there is Texan
It is religion. It is Bible here.
They mention a monument in Texas that's bigger than the one in Washington D.C. because everything's bigger in Texas, and that is a legit thing.
It is a real thing
because Texans love Texans, and I think making her a Texan, it was a perfect choice. Also, the narrator of the audiobook does a really great job with her voice.
Perfect.
Like, he has an awesome
It's
hilarious. It's amazing.
And Texas has regional accents.
It does, yeah.
And he nailed the regional regional accent for her because of where they place her in the book. It is, and the accent of the dad, right?
Yeah.
He is Cali, and he is in Texas, and
he's from Mexico City, right? So he's got
and that blended the narration. I will give a big thumbs up to the narrator.
Oh, for sure.
And I'll put it in the notes. Let's put it in the notes or the comments of who it is, because he's so good. He is so good.
He's so good.
Gold star, buddy.
Yeah, 100%. And I something. Well, no, we'll come back to that. But so White House trio. This is why I think the whole idea of the president's family being like royals works in this book.
Okay.
They adopt this name, the White House trio, to represent Alex.
It's like a PR
June,
blitz.
And Nora. Yes, it is. And it's been approved. Like, it's literally something that was debated on what we're going to call them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the decision to call them that and to paint them in the light as a group, and they are made up of, well, Alex points out that he and Nora are slightly too young to be millennials. They're actually Gen Zers.
Yeah.
But they they call them all millennials. And I think that young adult, that millennial moniker, that this generation of millennials and Gen Zers, and I fall just above the millennial marker.
And I'm like right there in the in-between.
Right. I
depends on what chart you look at.
Right. I'm right in the middle of the two. So, but millennials and Gen Zers, there is a different level of fame, and that comes from social media. And the White House Trio, they nail it. There's a social media presence, and they nail it. And they are sort of like royalty.
I love all three of them. She wrote them very thought out. Every single one of them, while as characters on their own, they are solid. Alex, Nora, and June are all solid characters on their own. But she set them up to be able to stand alone and be codependent at the same time.
Right.
It's really good writing. It's really good writing.
It is. And I call out authors when they make lazy decisions and sloppy writing decisions. And there's one part of this book that I find to be a little lazy, and that happens towards the end. And that's that, what is her name? Zara? I'm pretty sure her name is Zara. But the person that she's engaged to, and I don't want to give away the spoiler on that one. If you haven't read all the way to the end of the book, this doesn't happen to the end, but Zara is engaged to somebody, and I think that connection is a little lazy and incestuous in this book and unnecessary.
Oh, I thought it was hilarious.
I thought it was unnecessary. And also I want to know how the fuck they met each other. Like
Zara. Yes,
when do they have the time? When do they have the time? But anyway, I digress. All right, so
Zara, yes.
So let's talk about Alex and Henry.
Okay.
What do you think about them? Did you like their relationship? Was it believable? What are your thoughts?
It's believable. I think Henry is written with flaws, which we don't get a lot when we write in this kind of point of view.
Yeah.
We don't. I think.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt. I said it was first person, but it isn't.
It's third. Yeah, it's third person.
It's third person limited, so you actually don't get Henry's perspective except through the filter of Alex,
the narrator. Yeah,
right, which is interesting.
I by the way, I find a hard time as a writer personally to write in that third person.
It's not easy. It's
not easy. So bravo, because this was excellent written in that point of view.
I mean, the default is first person because it's
It's
easier to think in. Yeah.
Right. And yeah. So, but I like Alex. I like that he has flaws. I like who he is. He's very, determined, right? As a character.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. Like, a good example is like, he glosses over his college graduation.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal. It's just a step in the road.
And the LSATs and doesn't even like open his results for like months.
Right. Like, I find
crazy
that very telling of him as a character. Like, things that are major for a lot of us, he's just seeing it as a peg in the board, right? It is just something he's got to do to get to the next step.
Right.
And I think Henry crossing his path made him slow down to see that life has more than just check marks on a list, right?
Well, Alex, I mean, his big goal was to be the youngest person elected to Congress.
Right.
Whereas Henry is sort of still in a gap year that's kind of gone on longer than a gap year.
He wants to be a writer.
He wants to be a writer, which isn't an acceptable career in the royal family. They go into the military and then they be royals.
Because that's a job.
Right. Well, I mean, it is. They get a paycheck.
For sure.
But, yeah, I mean, I do think that they are complementary of each other. I like one of the things, and you brought this up, the different styles. We get a lot of interaction with them through text message and through email, and they are deeply moving.
Right.
There's so much emotion behind it. And in a lot of ways, I feel like their relationship progressed to a level of love because they communicated that way and not because they communicated in person. Because a lot of what they were doing in person was really just banging. Like they were together for like a hot second and everybody was naked. So their communication was mostly through digital means. It was, them
texting and it was a buffer. It was a chastity belt, really.
Right.
An ocean is a chastity belt.
Right. And it probably was helpful for Alex because he's discovering his sexuality. He's always referred to himself as straight, but we get glimpses in the book where he may not have really ever quite been straight.
And this book, I don't know if you have it written out that we're going to talk about this, but this book does such a great job going through that journey.
Yeah.
Learning him, realizing, oh crap, I've always felt this way,
right,
and I've never acknowledged it.
Right.
This is who I am. I'm a bisexual.
Right.
End of line, right? And
right.
And I think this is a story several people have felt.
Right.
Unfortunately, not everybody has the support system Alex does.
Yeah.
But the fear he felt about telling his family is a fear every person in the LGBTQ plus community feels.
Right.
And it's well written. It is very well written.
Right. And what I like about it is that it's not a whole thing. I mean, yeah, he's kind of struggling with it.
But it's real life.
Right.
Right. It doesn't.
I found it interesting that he talks about how he has a friend, Liam, mm-hmm. who is that right? Is that his name, Liam?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
when they
Liam
were in
from high school
together,
and they mess around,
right? They would watch porn together and they would masturbate together, and there were times when they were making out, and Liam might have reached around and and his whole thing was he thought if he were gay that it would be a bigger deal to him. But I think to myself,
and he also thought that this happened all the time.
Right.
That dudes did this all the time.
But I think to myself that, I mean, if I'm making out with a guy, my husband, for example, that's confirmation to me. I'm enjoying this. This is great. Right. I don't understand why Alex never really got there until it came from Henry. So, as you know, my first year teaching, actually my first 3 years teaching, I taught in a school for the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had a lot of kids, a lot of students that were LGBTQ. And we had an ally club, and I was one of the sponsors for that. I definitely think high schools, it's much harder to be out, to be any part of yourself in high school.
Especially in Texas where they were.
Well, this was in Florida.
Well, I was talking about for the book. Sorry.
Oh, right, yeah. And I think at a school for the arts, you would expect it to be more, accommodating and understanding, but it wasn't. I was judgy. The yearbook. Yeah, I know. I was the yearbook teacher, and my principal told me I wasn't allowed to put same-sex couples in the yearbook on the couples page. I know, and that's absolutely absurd. And at the time, and I
rude.
And I can't say that this is true anymore because I don't know the Florida rules. But at the time, as a teacher, you could be fired for anything that was considered immoral, and that was up to your district to decide. And I just thought to myself, you do realize that a lot of your staff are LGBTQ. We have a lot of gay people on our staff,
and I think we're and. Obviously, we're getting hyper political, which this is our opinions. None of anybody else's.
Right.
I feel like in 2021, we should not be judging anyone for their sexuality, how they identify, nothing.
Right.
Because as human beings, we are all different. We are all created different. We come out in different shapes and sizes when we're born.
And I'm thankful that we live in a time now where we are able to be more where we are more accepting,
right?
Where people who are LGBTQ can get married. You know what I mean?
Right.
My uncle, who's deceased now, he was gay. He and his partner were together for 20 years. My mom collected husbands like there was nobody's business. But
trading cards. Let's call them trading cards.
She did. But my uncle and his partner Mike were together for 20 years, and when my uncle was dying, Mike would not have been allowed to be in the room by Ohio law at that time had it not been for our family being like, oh, no, he's family.
Right.
Because they couldn't legally be married. So I'm very thankful that we are in a time now where that's different. But I can imagine being a high schooler, you don't ever really want to be yourself. I was like super awkward and weird because I just didn't want people to know my trauma, and I just didn't want them to know me.
I'm still super awkward and weird, though.
I mean, same, but I think it's really cool the way Alex discovers who he is, and in
a safe setting. I feel like he has a safe setting,
right?
And that's not always the case,
right?
And
I think today's youth, the youths,
I think chitlins,
I think they are more open to experimenting sexually. And so I think that's where Alex was just like, I'm just experimenting. And then he finally got...
And they're okay with not having a label to it,
and
it is an older generation thing. I will say our generation up like having things named, right? They like having things labeled. Right. And I think when it comes to younger generations, they don't need that. You know what I mean? Like, you love who you love and that's it.
Right. And I think that it was just, he's coming from a supportive family, so that's great. And you get the dichotomy of Henry, who is not from a supportive family.
Poor Henry, man.
His grandma, who's the queen,
pretty much told him to shut it down at the end.
Yeah. In the middle of the book, we find out that she told him, if you have any unnatural feelings, we can basically hire somebody to marry you, and you could just go bang who you want. He's never come out to her. Just make sure they sign an NDA. Right. He's never come out to her. He's never been honest about it. There's only one person in his family who knows, which is his sister B, Beatrice. And he came out to her in kind of a traumatic way. She was a drug addict and left rehab. And he's went just and found her and was
all like losing her shit, man.
Yeah, he's like, you need to get yourself right because dad's dead and you're a drug addict and I don't want you to die because I'm gay and I need somebody. But
I mean, if you haven't grown up with trauma and had a very similar conversation with a sibling, we can't relate.
Right. We're not here. We don't understand you.
That's why we use humor, because that's how we cover the trauma.
Right. So I actually want to talk a little bit, since we just talked about what Henry said to be. I want to talk about the dialogue in this book.
Okay.
Molly, I know you're a writer, and I dabble in writing, and I'm a major reader. It's my thing. It is very, very rare to have somebody who writes dialogue so authentically in their first go at writing. This is her first novel.
Right.
And her dialogue is so funny and relatable and real.
It feels real. Yes. It feels real. But let's talk about how many edits it takes to get there. Let's talk about on the other side of that.
I'm sure.
I wonder if I can pull something up real quick from her book.
I mean, I'm sure that it did take a few edits to get there because nobody's perfect. And we all know that when you go through the editing process.
So I'm on page 154.
All right.
Okay. And she goes, Alex, first son of shrinking responsibilities. And it goes on and on. I'm sure that was either super short or either super long. Yeah. And we had to cut it down and make it funny. Because making those funny and quippy is hard because not every email is like that, right? Yeah. So I'm sure I am certain she racked herself over the coals trying to make that and had an edit. And I'm sure there's an amazing editor out there somewhere.
Oh, sure. I'm sure.
That is like.
But I have to major snaps, major applause to her because even if an editor took a red pen to it and helped her make it better, and that's really what editors do, boys and girls, a little lesson on publishing. Editors really do rewrite a lot of books.
Word.
They don't just correct your grammar. It's not like your English teacher correcting grammar and spelling. It's not like that. They rewrite whole chunks of books.
I have a friend I know from the Coast Guard who is one of my beta readers. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you what, if I ever had the monies, she will be my editor because the notes she gives help shape and form these stories.
Right.
And shout out Teresa, because you have helped me in so many ways, lady.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, went through the editing process just like all books that are published do. But I just think what she did, it's smart and it's engaging, and she understands all of her characters well enough that like they all have a very clear point of view, and you know when you're reading it, oh yeah, that's something June would say. That's something Nora would say.
And I also feel like this author's very young. I'm going to say she's, you know what I mean? She writes different ages very well, right?
Oh yeah, I agree.
She writes Ellen, the president, well. She writes Leo and Oscar really well. She writes everyone so well. And getting in different age groups' head spaces writing is hard.
Right.
I mean, the English language is hard. Like, let's not lie.
Right. So I just wanted to, you know, point that out. Tom would, my husband, who I've talked about a few times on the pod, would come in while I was reading. I know, right? And I'd be cracking up, and he would just roll his eyes and walk out. But first of all, he doesn't, when he comes in and he's laughing, he doesn't know if I'm laughing because it's a funny, humor-ridden written piece, or if it's because they're being naughty, because I still laugh
comfortable.
Like I still laugh like I'm a 12 and like watching a rated R movie, like, oh my gosh, little kids like each other, what's happening right now?
Well, because it feels intimate, right?
Right.
You're invading you feel like you're invading someone's privacy by reading it.
And I've read a few LGBTQ romances, and this one I like. This is probably my favorite. It's also the only one that I've read that was adult fiction. This is not YA. Right. Alex and Henry are both youngish adults. They're in their early mid-20s. But it's not YA.
So, yeah.
They're Alex is a senior in college. And Henry is in his gap year, and like I think he's 24.
Yeah.
So they're youngish adults, but they're not young adults. Like they're not teens. So this is the first one I've read that was adult. It's very naughty. It's spicy.
Naughty. What spicy. Is that? It's a sound from TikTok. Spicy.
I'm not on TikTok.
Why is it spicy?
But side note to all of our listeners, Molly sends me TikToks all the time. Like at this point, I feel like I should just join so she can share them easier.
It'll just make me send you more. You're
true.
Giving me a barrier. Let's not lie. You're just giving me a barrier.
That's true. Okay. So one of the things that happens to be very funny dialogue, and also just an example of knowing your characters really well, when Alex comes out to his mom. Now, I want to preface this for our readers by saying Alex literally gets caught when Henry falls out of his closet. Like a literal thing.
By Zara.
Zara. At the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, a member of the royal family should not be supporting any political figure in the U.S. So being in the DNC,
especially not at not a political party either.
Right. So being in the DNC was already a bit sketch, but he was there because
very low key there, right? Like
he was there because Henry, he was already in New York, but he stayed. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but something happened that Alex had a really bad day.
Yeah. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff happening.
His friend, Raphael Luna, who he helped get elected to Congress, is now going to be on the other side. His mom's opponent, Raphael Luna, is on his team. He was an independent, so he wasn't a Democrat like Alex's family. But they did help him, and they consider him to be family. And Henry came to support Alex after that, and they had sex. And the next morning, Zara came to wake him up, and
busted in because his phone was dead.
Yeah, and first she's pretty mad because you need
because she thought she had a rando girl in there,
right. And then Henry falls out of his closet, and Zara's response is basically like, first of all, she's hilarious, and she's pretty much like, you're going to be the fucking death of me.
Which, I mean, she's not wrong, right?
She's not wrong.
Alex is a massive, if this was written from Zara's point of view, that boy is a pain in the ass.
Oh,
let me tell you what.
And that
boy is a pain in the ass.
I love how she says she's known him since he was leaving skid marks in his underpants.
I mean, because true, boys.
Boys. They're gross.
Boys.
My boys are gross. Anyway, so she tells him, you need to come out, you need to tell your mom what's happening.
Right.
She doesn't say you need to come out to your mom. She says you need to tell her about your
relationship. You need to tell her before I do, pretty much.
Right.
Like, you tell her, I'm going to tell her, because somebody's going to let her know this is going on.
Right. So the funny scene, when Madam President becomes mom and decides to have a new sex talk with Alex.
Okay, I can see their whole child.
The PowerPoint slides had me rolling. Oh,
I can see their whole childhood in this, right?
Yes.
Like, this is family meetings are like business like. Let's get down to it. This is the facts. Here's how it is. Mm-hmm. Ship up or ship out, man. Like, that's how this is going to be. And let's not lie. If you've seen me interact with my children, you know I'm very similar. Shape up or ship out. Like, there is no. So I love her. I'm trying to find her.
Here we go. It's in chapter 9.
Yeah.
All right. So here are some
the slides. Oh
God,
the slides.
These are the titles of the slides from the PowerPoint that his mother has with him. First of all, she sends him a calendar request that says calendar request from
back
mom.
Up in 15 minutes.
2 p.m. West Wing, first floor, international ethics and sexual identity debrief. And here are the slide titles: exploring your sexuality, healthy, but does it have to be with the Prince of England? The next one is federal funding, travel expenses, booty calls, and you. And is that all of them that they mention here?
And then the pamphlets. Okay. I had Planned Parenthood bring these over.
I love this though. This is a really good supportive mom here. She's like, oh, one last thing. I know Texas public schools don't have sex ed for shit, and we didn't go over this when we had the talk, which is on me for assuming. Which, bravo, mom, for saying right. I was wrong for assuming that you were straight. And where'd it go? So I just want to make sure you know that you still need to use condoms, even if you're having anal. And he's like, thank you, Mom. Bye. And she's like, wait, I had Planned Parenthood send over some pamphlets. Take one. They sent a bike messenger and everything. And I love that moment because she's being mom and president at the same time. And I love it.
But it shows who she is as a person, right?
Yes, okay. And she's good.
So, I want to bounce back to Alex for a second and talk about who he is as a gay rights advocate. Okay? Because this is like a thing for him. And it starts early, right? Like, in the beginning of chapter 7, he's talking about all these gay who are gay, right? Like, he talks about how Bowie was sleeping with everyone back in the day.
This is Henry was saying.
Henry. Okay. And he makes a joke about Lupin from Harry Potter being gay, which I completely agree. I think Lupin and Severus were a thing, but that's
okay. But see, I don't get that because I've read 3.5 of the books, and I'm like, I don't get that. But whatever.
It's also in the deep recesses of fanfic, right?
I mean, the Harry Potter fandom runs deep too.
Word. Oh,
y'all are crazy.
I will say I'm like a 5 out of like 50 of the like I know my house, I know all that jazz, but I'm not like sitting here writing fanfic every night and like. But he even gets to the point at the end. Spoiler: at the end of the book, he's opening, safe houses for gay use. Yeah. Like he is,
and I mean. I don't understand how England didn't know he was gay. Like, I mean, I'm not.
He's so well dressed. He's so handsome. Like,
no, but I mean, all of his projects were LGBTQ centered.
Right.
And his best friend Pez or Pezza.
I love Pez.
He's amazing. Every single book that has British characters in it needs someone like Pezza in it. Like, you just can't. And we have a similar character in the Royal We. There's a very similar character.
Right.
But he's very flaming. The guy is straight, but he is
straighter than the day is long because he's obsessed with June.
He is so in love with June.
Which I need a roll-off. I need a roll-off book of those two.
Oh my gosh.
Please.
So cool. I just want to know what happened in the hotel room where the next morning they woke up and Alex noticed that she had lipstick on her neck, and Nora, Pezza, and June were in that hotel room together. And Nora is also not straight.
Okay, I read that wrong. I thought Nora and B were coming out of a room.
No.
I thought, okay. I totally read that as Nora and B were hooking up.
It's Nora, June, and Pez all in a room together.
You know what? That wouldn't surprise me because Nora is constantly talking about June in a lustful way. So let's not lie.
And June says things back to Nora too.
Right. Yeah. And that's okay. You know what? It's a weird little throuple thing that the White House trio is, but it works for them.
Well, Alex and Nora have literally slept together. They dated.
They were a couple. They even, talk about how one day that they're going to marry and just make things like, fish.
Right.
Which I highly doubt.
But that's not going to happen.
But,
no.
Okay.
All right, so sorry, I love that about Henry too. He's definitely he knows the deep history of the LGBTQ community. It
was Bowie and someone else, Jagger. He was talking about how Bowie and Jagger were sleeping around all over
up and down the street in England. Yeah, and I think that's really a good point. What's interesting is Alex, his role model is a gay man who's in Congress, but he doesn't really consider himself to be an activist until he starts discovering that side of himself. So I guess, he would still be an ally. He supported it,
but he didn't feel like he needed to be active.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And that brings me to my favorite quote from the book, which also ends up being, I think, probably the thing that defines this book.
Right.
Which is when Alex and Henry are talking through one of their emails about all these people, and they keep exchanging letters.
Love letters.
That have been from people who, like Eleanor Roosevelt, that many people thought was probably gay. And
she had a live-in girlfriend. She was gay.
And Hamilton, there's a whole thing. But
Hamilton's fluid.
Yeah. But he says, history, huh? How about, I wonder if we could make some. And I think that is the big defining
it's a great quote.
History, huh? Ends up being, obviously what happens, there's a scandal. Henry and Alex are found out by the other campaign, possibly, or somebody has leaked footage of them together. And first of all, that's terrible for Henry because he's never even come out to his family.
Right.
But people start making t-shirts that say history, huh?
Yeah. Because the emails get leaked.
Right. And they are supporting him and Henry's relationship, which, by the way, they were already writing fanfic about the two of them banging anyway. So so I think it's really a great quote. The other great quote from this that I really like is politics, calculating, even in hashtags. And I cannot think of a better way to define current American politics other than that.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to take just a brief talk about politics.
Okay, so I think this is actually good because I was going to talk about it too. Okay. And, let's forewarn you guys. April and I sit on different sides of the bar.
We do.
We have views from both sides of the aisle,
but we still love each other, and that's a good message to everybody. Stop hating people on the other side just because they don't think the same as you.
Actually, I'll dive into this first if that's okay. So when she talked about Texas going blue in 2020, I cried. Because of how close here in Texas we were on 2020 going blue.
It was a battleground state for the first time in a very long time.
And it was joyful and it was heartbreaking at the same time because before it was hopeful. Now it's just devastating because we were a battleground state. One, there were a lot of positions that we needed blue Senate seats to get. We needed blue areas to light up. Because there is a lot of old white men here in Texas making a lot of stingy old rules that are not necessary anymore here. And Texas going blue would help shape that and change that. Because there is a lot of backwards thinking here still,
But Molly, I'm sorry, but Texas being blue feels like something that's a pipe dream because the only part of Texas that is blue is Austin.
Right, it is. Well, Harris County's starting to go purple. Let's say that.
Harris County is so surprising to me.
Paris County is turning purple. We have a lot of judges that are blue, but without getting like hyper political about this and getting into like the pros and cons and like what's going on, that feeling of hope of wanting it, I sat up and watched Texas the night of 2020. I hoped and prayed for every county that was a battleground county. So I knew that feeling. I felt that deep in my soul, right? But if you don't have those political views, this is a hyper political book, and from one side,
and that's the key right there. So the first time I read this book, I enjoyed it because it's funny and it's sexy. And the second time I read it, and it was the same thing. This time I was really bothered by the politics of it.
That's her point of view, right?
And it's aggressively liberal. And the reason I say that is because this book is not written with a clear understanding of what conservatives and Republicans believe.
Right.
The main figure in this book, who is a Republican, is a closeted pedophile.
Right.
He's a gay man.
Which is gross.
He's a pedophile, but he's also looking for boys and girls, and of course he has to be closeted.
He's a sexual predator. He's a sexual predator. Yes,
he is 100%. And the idea is basically that the only people who support LGBTQ community are liberals, and that's just simply not true.
And that's not true. But I'm trying to find the words right without feet. What is in mainstream media, both red and blue sides, the people that have the power and the voice are not the ones that are on the border, the ones that are pro-life, pro-choice, that are still red. They don't have the microphone, right? The people that have the microphone and have the biggest voice are the ones that are against the LGBTQ plus community, which is frustrating.
With you because I don't think it's the politicians that have the microphone. It's CNN,
right?
It's MSNBC, it's Fox News. They're guilty of it too. I'm a former journalism teacher. I don't watch one particular show over another. I actually think they're all crap. I hate the way that our media is right now. It's very disturbing.
Polarizing.
Agreed. It's very polarizing. And this book, while I loved it so much, and I think it is a great coming of age story and a journey in someone's sexuality, and it's just really well written, I am bothered by the fact that she doesn't really understand politics, and yet she wrote a book about politics. And so that is my big gripe about this book. Because, every book that we read, I'm going to have an issue with something in it. Right. Nothing's perfect. Except for maybe To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, that's perfect. But
I don't know. The book's kind of old.
It's still perfect. Okay. Harper Lee is a fucking genius. Was a fucking genius. May she rest in peace. I love her with all my life.
R.I.P.
She's amazing. The woman could have written a grocery list, and I would have paid $1 billion for it because she's amazing.
You have $1 billion? What are you doing with your life?
If I had $1 million,
I'd be rich.
Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry to diverge into politics for those of you who are listening and you're not political. Molly and I don't talk about politics a lot. It's a big part of both of our lives because we come from backgrounds in which our employers are political in nature. I am a teacher and a librarian, which are both funded federally and state and locally. Molly is former military, which is obviously federally funded. So our jobs are political in nature. Right. We do sit on two opposite sides of the aisle, just like she said. But we
have overlying very similar views.
Right.
It's just we have different ways we think like we go about them.
And I think that that's really the important takeaway of this. Politics is not all right and left. There is a lot of center. There's a
lot of us that are in the middle ground.
There's more center than there is right and left.
So here's a quote. It's, I believe that you can protect your pot farm with your husband and Uzi if you want. Just leave me alone.
Right. Okay. So on that note,
please snap that. That'd be hilarious.
So on that note,
fantasy casting
Fantasy casting, yes. So, okay. So, as of right now, there is not a movie in the making for this. Although
Amazon has it?
IMDb has a page open, or a page. I sent Molly a link. If I can find it again, I can link it in our YouTube video. It is Amazon bought it. Amazon bought it before the book was published.
So they had preview rights, which means they liked it enough to hold on to it.
Right. And it was a bidding war as well. So no one has been cast that we know of. Nothing has been done on this production, but I want to talk about dream casting.
Okay, so I have 3 hard ones I don't want to argue about.
Okay.
And then I have ones that are negotiable.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say I only came up with people for Alex and Henry. Have you cast the entire book?
Very close to it.
Oh my god. I love you so much.
So my 3 hards. First and foremost, Madam President, Ellen. I thought of this person as soon as I started hearing this book, and I know it makes no sense, and I'm not going to argue about this. This is who it should be. Deborah Messing.
Really?
Deborah Messing. Stop. Pause. No, think about it.
I don't think so. Guys, she's not letting me debate this.
No. This is... I told you, there are 3s we're not having our conversation about. Number 2, Leo, the stepdad and the husband.
Okay.
Nick Offerman.
Oh my gosh, I kind of love that. I kind of love that.
Nick Offerman. He
not at all how I picture Leo, but he would be perfect.
Perfect.
He would be perfect.
Number 3, and this is my last hard and fast, and then I have the rest of my casting. Zara will be played by Amy Poehler.
No.
Yeah, you don't get a point. I saw 3 hards. No. The rest you can argue.
First of all, Zara is an African American woman, so it cannot be Amy.
That's true.
As much as I love Amy Poehler.
It's true, she is. But I hear her tenor, her voice, her demeanor. So for the rest of the casting, June, Florence, I'm going to say her last name wrong, Pugh.
Florence. Oh, Florence she would be great. She would be great.
Okay, Henry would be played by Jaron Lewison. He's from Never Have I Ever, the Mindy Kaling show.
Okay, I don't know that show.
He's got dark hair, but he would be really good as Henry.
Okay.
Alex would be played by Taylor Zahar Perez, who was in Kissing Booth.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Nora is Ariel Winters.
I could get on board with that. I kind of always pictured her more like, I can't think of her name. Keep going. I'm gonna look up the name.
So Pez, I want a new Bollywood star. Bring me your best Bollywood star, because I don't think we have an influx of enough Bollywood in American film, and I want them. Oscar Diaz is going to be played by Benjamin Bratt.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's all I got. That's all I got.
First of all, Pez is definitely African, so that won't work.
I thought he was Indian.
No, he's African. Mae Whitman, that's who I picture Nora.
Okay, May's not old. Is too old for that role now, though.
But see, everybody I picked is too old for the role.
Okay, all right. I want to hear him, though.
I have issues.
I want to hear him.
Okay, hang on one second, because I forgot the name of the person that I had in mind.
I love May, though. May, I love you. You are fantastic. I've loved you since freaking Independence Day, when you were just a little nugget.
Well, she's amazing, and I love her. Okay, so everybody that I've picked is too old to actually be the people in this book.
I kind of love it, though.
So President, and this is probably a little too typecasting, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bellamy Young from Scandal.
Okay, that's good.
She's got that good Southern twang down, and she played a president, so she works.
So check.
Done. I didn't come up with somebody for Leo, but I 100% think that oh my gosh, I just drew a blank.
Nick Offerman?
Nick Offerman would be amazing. For Alex, again, this person's too old, but Ryan Guzman from 911 and from Heroes.
Yeah.
That man is just hot Latin loveliness.
Yeah, for real.
And Henry Sam Claflin from
Finnick O'Dare.
Finnick O'Dare from Hunger Games. He's amazing. He's this hot British guy, and
he also has a massive range.
He does.
He has a massive range as an actor.
And, nice ass.
Congratulations, sir.
Gosh, just admiring God's handiwork. That's all. Yeah. So that's who I would go with on that. I totally agree with you on June. I think Florence Pugh would be great. She would be great. Yeah. I think that's some dream casting for me. Who am I missing? Zara. So, okay, here's her name. Oh, goodness. I do not know how to say this name either. I am so sorry for this pronunciation. Yara Shahidi?
What do we know her from?
Blackish and Youngish.
Oh, yeah.
Grownish. That's her spinoff that she has.
Yes. Blackish. Oh, she would be good.
That is 100% how I picture Zara.
But she's older. Zara's much older. She's the same age as the president.
I didn't get that. I got that she was somewhere in between June and Lady President.
I thought she was in her 30s. Yeah, okay.
But the president's older.
Okay, so in the comments, tell us who your fantasy casting is.
Fantasy casting, yes. Always important.
But
because Hollywood will never listen to us, and it'll be someone that we are like, what the fuck? This is not who.
But like I said, Deborah Messing, Nick Offerman, they're solids. You're not gonna change my opinion on those.
I do not agree with Deborah Messing at all.
Did you ever see Mysteries of Laura?
I don't even know what that is.
Cop show. Okay, so she had a cop show back in the day.
What?
Yeah, she did. It was so good. Shut up. It was so good, and she was a serious.
Who let her do that?
NBC, man, they wanted to keep her on. She probably had a company freaking contract, and they're like, better use her before she leaves.
No. Oh, you know who we didn't cast these people, but some side characters to talk about real quick. The main Secret Service agent is a transgender woman.
Yes.
So it'd be nice to actually cast somebody who is trans.
Which always.
Right. So yes, Hollywood, please start casting actors that identify as trans and in appropriate roles.
Right.
And instead of putting men in dresses that
let's not even talk about like George O'Malley being T.R. Knight being forced to play a straight man.
Aww, but I love George.
I love George too, but it would have been nice for him to get one of the later LGBTQ plus roles as well, since he is a part of the community.
Well, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about for this one? Because we are running a
so my notes. What do I got on my notes? I got my notes. Talking about the formatting. I really hope there is a runoff of this. Oh, yeah. I do. The one thing I really want to talk about is Alex and June, outside of the trio,
right, as brother and sister,
have a very codependent relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that stems from the divorce. When you are bounced between two households, and it's you and somebody else, that whole, codependency is long running, So, I want to see how you felt about it.
Sorry, my mic went all weird for a second.
That's okay.
So if you're wondering why I was making weird faces, that's why. I definitely think that. I think she felt the big sister role, which I'm the big sister and you're the big sister, so we understand like that protective role. She gave up a lot for him, but I also think part of June's problem is not the protectiveness that she feels for Alex. I think a lot of her problem is her own insecurities as well. Like she's
not getting to write what she wants to write. She is being put in a box because of who she is, right? She's not getting to write the things she wants to write. She's not allowed to write her political views. She's
right.
And being there for Alex and pretty much keeping Alex on track is helping her distract herself from being, focusing on herself.
But I also think that Alex takes leaps that June never would.
Right.
And sometimes you just have to do it. Like, she gave up a lot for him that he didn't ask her to do that.
Right.
One last thing from me. I do want to say it's very funny to listen to the audiobook and hear him say poop emoji, because he reads our narrator reads everything that's in the text.
Let me see if I can pull it up real quick.
If you're watching us on YouTube, we can show you what we're talking about. But
I'm pulling it up right now. HRH Prince Dickhead poop emoji. And
yes. And Alex,
I don't know if it'll focus enough for you to see.
Alex has Henry in his phone with that, and it doesn't change. Even as they're like loving each other, it doesn't change. He's still got the poop emoji.
But that, he has a lot of the people he texts are like that, right?
Right.
And then the group chat.
It's the three geniuses and Alex.
And do I really need to be in this chat? How many times have you gotten a group chat and they're not even talking to you, but they want you in the loop, and you're just like, why the frack am I here, man?
I know. That's about the time that I'm like, I'm going to turn you guys off for a little while.
I'll catch up later.
So, the first kiss is a really iconic moment in this book. Henry is at their New Year's Eve party. There's fantastic banter. Alex is grinding with Nora while Henry's watching him.
Because he's never seen a junior high dance before.
And they're grinding, and Henry can't stop watching Alex.
Right.
And Henry kind of disappears. And when Alex finds him, they have the conversation of, I thought I like you, basically. And he just leans over and he kisses Alex, and Alex is into it.
Right.
So that's the first moment there.
There was tongue, as Nora says.
Yeah, right. I want to know your take on this too. I think Henry was at least in with Alex from jump.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Alex, and I think there's a lot of evidence of that. And I think
Alex has always liked him. I mean, the evidence of the the teen magazines from when they were kids, right?
Right. I think he always liked him. I don't think he realized how much he cared for him until time started going on.
Right.
Which, that's hard,
Okay, so to close out, your favorite scene in the book.
My favorite scene in the book. It's probably the New Year's Eve kiss. That's probably my favorite.
I really loved their time in Texas. I think seeing Alex and June and Nora and Henry out of the public eye, in a family place that is away from the world, seeing them in a different setting and seeing them just get to be different than who they are in public light was refreshing for them, right?
But it's also the point that becomes really scary too.
Right, for the boys, right, because it's just
it's a little too real.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I think I got through all of my things.
That's all of my things.
I think we're running a little long, so I'm sorry to our listeners because
I'm not. Long. As always, she's gonna apologize, and I'm not.
Molly, do you want to tell us what we are talking about next week?
I am so excited for this book. Let me tell you what. So Discovery of Witches next week, which we've been having a really fun conversation about. Mm-hmm. We've been having really fun.
Which they will hear in a week.
You guys will hear in a week, which I think the fact that this is my jam, right? This is, I love Deb's writing.
This book is sacred to you.
This is Bible to me, right? This is my standard for good writing. Mm-hmm. And for you to take the dive into reading into a genre that's not your jam.
Yep.
I appreciate. So, we have a lot coming up. What did I have? I have it written down. We have Discovery.
After Discovery is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell.
Right.
Which was another pick of mine.
Right. And then what else do we have after that?
And then in September, we are going to dive into some banned books.
Yeah.
Which is like every book I've ever loved was a banned book. So I'm excited about that.
It's going to be fun.
All right. So I think we're done.
I think that's it.
I love you, Molly.
I love you, lady.
Hanging out with me again this week.
It's been fun. Thanks for hosting. This is a blast.
I know. It's been great. All right. Well, I will see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye. Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The views discussed here are those of Molly and April, not those of anyone else. Today's book was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins. Editing by Thomas Watkins. And music is Sleep Sweetly by Pritiga. Don't forget to follow Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. If you would like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com.